So as photographers, we know that our least favorite time of day to shoot, do any type of outdoor photo shoot, is in the middle of the day. Harsh, direct sunlight overhead, raccoon eyes, squinty eyes, unflattering shadows. It's just the worst. Obviously, we love to shoot when it's golden hour, morning, sunset, beautiful sky colors, even lighting everywhere. But especially if you're a professional, you can't always control that. You can't always do client shoots at the optimal time, especially if you're doing multiple shoots. So sometimes you just gotta do an outdoor shoot in the middle of the day. But if you know a couple of tips and tricks, it's not the worst thing ever, and you can get some pretty cool results. So today I'm gonna share with you my tips that I've learned along the way from doing photo shoots in the middle of the day with harsh sunlight to actually get you some pretty cool results. And we're gonna be looking at a recent photo shoot that I just did that, honestly, these photos came out pretty awesome. So let's get into the video right now. Okay, so tip number one, it starts before the photo shoot. It's find a location that offers a variety of shots. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes a client might want to do a photo shoot in a really iconic spot. Maybe it's a certain background or certain composition or something. But the only problem is it's like you only have that one type of shot. Maybe it's an area that doesn't have a huge variety where you can do a shot here, you can do a shot there. So you want to plan to use a location that offers a variety of things, especially if there's like building, nature, city, anything like that, because if you're looking at a certain composition, a certain spot that maybe you saw another photographer do and it wasn't during midday, it's probably not going to look the same then, and you might not be able to do it. I mean, you can, but you might get squinty eyes, harsh sunlight, all of that stuff. So at this photo shoot, we chose a location that I actually had never been before, but I researched it in advance, and it's like an outdoor building type thing where there's a bunch of structures, trees, really tall trees, which is a really good thing. So it offered a whole bunch of variety, which was perfect for this, to make sure that in case this certain spot didn't work, we could do over here, we could shoot this way. It just made it a lot easier because I wasn't limited to one spot. So a pro tip, you can actually hop onto Instagram and search that location and you can see all the photos taken there. You can see the top or the most recent results, and then that way you can just get an idea of what other photographers are doing there, what other types of photos people are getting, and you can see if there's any that have been shot in direct sunlight in the middle of the day and see how those came out. Okay, moving on to tip number two. So now that you've found the spot, now you're headed out to the shoot and you're looking for where you're gonna get started, you want to find shade. In this case, shade is your best friend. That's one of the best things about using a location that has, different structures, whether it's like a building, a park, a bunch of trees. You just definitely don't want to do a shoot in like the middle of a field unless you're intentionally going for some like direct sunlight looks. You don't want to do that because you're just not going to be able to get away from the sun. So especially in this shoot, we use the side of a building, the structures that were overhead, any types of cool shadows I could see, putting her under a tree, just anywhere that I could find shade so it wasn't just like really harsh, unflattering light hitting her, whether it got diffused by hitting the wall, then the shade, or whatever it is. Shade will just be your best friend in this type of shoot because you'll get even light on their face and not crazy, squinty, harsh light. Next up, tip number three is you want to underexpose for the highlights. So this is something I really picked on because if you expose for your subject and you properly expose on the meter and it's like right in the middle where it should be, chances are the background is going to be really overexposed, especially if your subject is in the shade and then the sunlight is behind them hitting whatever else, that's going to be really overexposed. So you definitely want to shoot raw. If you shoot JPEG, nothing wrong with that, but you're gonna cake in these camera settings, the exposure, and you're not gonna really have a lot of wiggle room in editing. So what you wanna do is shoot raw, underexposed by a stop or two, have enough detail to recover the background, the highlights, and then you can bring up the shadows and midtones in editing, no problem. Obviously, you want to test this in advance to see how capable your camera sensor is and all of that, because you obviously don't want to have a noisy image in the middle of the day. But honestly, that's what I did for this shoot, kind of underexposed everything by a stop or so, even though on camera directly it might not look the most flattering thing because your subject's going to be pretty dark. The final results will be a lot better because you'll have a way more dynamic image and not just blown out spots. Especially because sometimes if you're under a tree, you're gonna get, even though you're gonna get a little bit better lighting, you're still gonna get a whole bunch of spottiness because it's not gonna be like, perfectly shaded. So if you underexpose a little bit, you'll recover those hot spots and then you can just even it out in editing versus just having like blown out spots all over their face, hair, whatever. So the next tip is probably one of the most important ones, and that is backlighting. Backlighting, backlighting, all the way. So let me explain what that means. First of all, this is only gonna work if the sun is literally not directly overhead. Like if it's directly overhead, whatever direction you face, the sun's gonna be just right there. But now say the sun is like, a little bit off, kind of like this direction. If you place your subjects back to the sun, so the sun is behind them, you're gonna get even light on the front. So what you basically wanna avoid is having, like if this was the sun, having it shining directly at them, because it's not gonna look like this. It's not gonna be nice and diffused. So instead of dealing with that harsh sunlight hitting them, if you put the sun behind them, you're gonna get a lot better results. Because you'll have nice even light in the front, you can underexpose a bit for the highlights and the background, and now you're gonna have a really nice dynamic image. And if you backlight your subject, you're gonna have a nice little glow around them, which is actually gonna look pretty good. And this is one of my favorite things to do at sunset, but also works especially during the winter time, because the sun, I don't know, but here in Texas at least, like the light is so different and so nice during the winter. Like I actually love doing photo shoots like at any time of the day, because I guess the sun is lower in the horizon, so you can always backlight and get really good results that way, even if it's like 3 p.m. So for the next tip, you wanna use a diffuser. Let me show you how this works. This is honestly a $25 photography accessory that I neglected to buy for too long when I first started. Cool thing about it is, you have different things like, you can bounce light, take away light. But what I really want to show you is the inside part of this, because this is a layer of diffusion. So let's say this is the sun. If you put this in front, you see that? See, like, I just pointed at the monitor as if you can see that. If I put this in front of my light, now it's even softer. Like the light is crazy soft. It's a little bit darker because I'm putting something in front of it, but it actually looks pretty good, at least on the monitor. But here, if I take it away, now it's like obviously brighter. If this was a harsh light source, I can put this in front of it, and now I'm gonna get softer results. Now it's not gonna look that good because the sun is so powerful and this is a really thin layer of diffusion, but it's gonna help out tremendously. So if you're using a tighter focal length, for example, like a 50 or an 85, and you're doing more portrait style work, you can place your subject either backlighting them, or if you want the sun directly in front, kind of like hitting them at this 45-degree angle or just wherever the sun is, if you put that in front of the sun, diffuse it, you're gonna get actually some pretty cool results, and it's gonna look a lot better than not using one. And here's another pro tip: whenever you're shooting in harsh sunlight, your clients are most likely just gonna be doing this the whole time, and you don't want your photos to look like that. So one thing you can do is just be like, count them down and tell them to close your eyes until you're about to take the photo. I know it sounds funny, but if they close their eyes and you're like, all right, 1, 2, 3, and then you take the photo or whatever pose they're doing, they'll open their eyes for that first couple of shots without squinting, and you'll get better results. And the last tip is to do all of these things together. That's kind of how like one of my favorite images came together from this shoot. This one that I got where she's sitting in the Porsche is one of my favorite shots because of the pose she's in. It's really dynamic, and the lighting and the background looks really cool. If we break that photo down, I did all of these tips. Picked a location with a good variety. I used the shade from the tree. I backlighted her by having the sun, on the back side of her. And the only thing I didn't use was a diffuser, just because I couldn't get one in there, and this was a 35mm, but we did use the diffuser in some shots, and those worked out great. So if you do all of these tips, I guarantee you're gonna get some pretty cool results. So that's pretty much it, guys. Those are the tips that I would do for any photo shoot that I have to do in harsh sunlight in the middle of the day. Doing these will get you some really good results that your client is gonna be really happy with. So leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be part of the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Got some gear reviews coming, got some stuff that came in from some brands, and I'm stoked to make some videos on it. I'm interested in testing this one out because it's kind of like my 120D, a little bit more powerful. It's called the Light Light Ninja 200, Light Ninja 20. So I want to do a photo shoot with this, show you the results doing constant light versus flash. It's gonna be pretty cool. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.